Shalt. Betrayal. Hollywood's biggest lie. The world believed Priscilla was an innocent muse, a captive of the king. But the real story is a 10-year silent war. 10 years in Elvis's shadow, which she transformed into her million-dollar throne, while the king himself slowly faded. Behind the doors of Graceland, there was no fairy tale. There was a cold calculation, plotted by a 14-year-old girl who turned out to be a genius strategist. Imagine, the king of rock and roll, surrounded by bodyguards and fans, was absolutely lonely. His closest person, his only wife, was not love, but a Trojan horse. She didn't just step out of his shadow. She waited for his death to seize everything. Her life with Elvis was a rehearsal, a grand spectacle whose ultimate goal was one thing: to get not his heart, but his last name and legacy. Today, we will look at 3 facts that turn this romantic fairy tale into a cynical, strategic, and cruel deal. Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll. His name is synonymous with success, money, and, of course, hundreds of women who were crazy about him, but only one woman was connected to him until the end. Only one woman shared the most intimate moments with him, living with him in the closed world of Graceland, Priscilla Beaulieu. She was only 14 when they met in Germany. He was 24, a global legend tired of military service. He was looking for an ideal in her, an unspoiled quality he had already lost, wishing to create an untouched Madonna in a world full of sin and vice, as his own moral principles were contradictory. What was the lonely, controlling king looking for in the childlike innocence he could mold to his own liking? And what, in fact, was she looking for in his golden cage, where everything was allowed except freedom and her own opinion? The official story is a saga of unearthly, almost platonic love that overcame age, distance, and public skepticism. This legend is the best PR product created by Colonel Tom Parker and later perfected by Priscilla herself to the level of an irresistible myth, which she maintains with amazing persistence, controlling all narratives about their life together. But we are here to reveal the secret that shatters this glittering facade. The secret that reveals Priscilla not as an eternal, devoted muse, but as a cunning, far-sighted strategist who used his blind passion and his desire to control as her own tools. She learned to be silent when she needed to be silent, and to act when the perfect time for liberation arrived. She lived by his unimaginably rigid rules but played by her own, always keeping the ultimate goal in mind: to secure her name in eternity, making it inseparable from his legend. Essentially, her life with Elvis was an intensive 10-year preparation to become the most influential symbol, the widowed symbol of the king. Here is the main, sensational question. Was their story true love, or was it the most expensive and longest contract in show business history, from which she received the largest and most enduring profit, completely transforming herself and rewriting her destiny? To understand the true price of Graceland, you must know 3 undeniable proofs that will forever change your perception of the princess of the king. Stay to learn the truth that lay in the shadows of his stage. Priscilla's move to Memphis was not the move of a fiancé, but the entry into a closed, almost monastic club where one absolute dictator reigned, whose will was law and whose power was unlimited. It happened in 1963. She was 17. Although her parents demanded that she live with Elvis's parents and attend Catholic school, the true rules of Graceland were much harsher and non-negotiable. Elvis demanded that she dress as his ideal. No jeans, no bright, distracting colors. She had to be his reflection, but never a competitor, even in fashion. Priscilla was a living doll whom he constantly created step by step. He wanted her to reflect his taste, his vision of the ideal woman, but she was not supposed to have her own personality. She was his new, untainted face in the ideal image. The bodyguards recalled, surprised by her silence and obedience, as they had never seen such unquestioning compliance. She never complained once. Sources claim she never saw him without makeup and did not allow him to see her, maintaining the myth of the ideal, untouchable image that benefited them both. This was part of a silent agreement to preserve the illusion that kept them together and at a distance. She absolutely obediently carried out all his whims. Dyed black hair, heavy, carefully applied makeup, the absence of her own, even the smallest career. Elvis controlled everything, from her wardrobe to her social circle. But Priscilla did not resist. She saw it not as humiliation or imprisonment, but as a necessary investment, a necessary sacrifice to gain immortal status in a future she may have already dreamed of. She saw it as an intensive, accelerated survival training in the world of stars, where the rules were brutal. She intuitively knew, to become the queen, she must first become the ideal figure on his chessboard. Ideal, flawless, but essentially an empty figure that he could show the world. She understood that only in this way could she remain in this golden world forever, securing an invisible but strong insurance policy for the future that would be otherwise inaccessible to her. Her patience was endless because her ultimate goal was just as high. Her life at that time was not hers, but his property, but she saw it as a tool that she would use at the most opportune moment. Here are 3 facts that turn this romantic fairy tale into a cynical, strategic deal. Proof number 1, marriage as an alibi. They married in 1967. But did you know that the marriage only happened after an ultimatum from Priscilla's father and, much more importantly, at the insistence of Colonel Tom Parker? Rumors that she was pregnant, although this was untrue at the time, forced them to rush the event to avoid a scandal that could ruin Elvis's image as an idol and hinder his return to the big stage. Elvis was then mired in an endless string of questionable relationships, and his growing dependence on medication began to cause concern that could not be hidden forever, and which could become public knowledge that would destroy his career. His reputation and, consequently, his financial empire were threatened. Colonel Parker, the king's chief financial dictator, saw the marriage only as a necessary business step to clean up Elvis's image before filming and the public, which demanded stability from its idol. Priscilla became the ideal, publicly untainted alibi. Their wedding, though brilliant, was not about love, but about crisis management and image control that was collapsing under the pressure of Hollywood and the press. Biographers state, they agreed that it would only be a formality. Elvis did not want children, did not want commitment, as this could ruin his image as an eternal playboy and harm the sales of his records, which were his main source of income. But Priscilla wanted the last name. She got it. And then, 9 months later, she gave birth to Lisa Marie. And it was this act, the birth of the sole heiress, that solidified her status forever, making her an inseparable part of the Presley story, regardless of the future divorce. She secured her place in the king's family history, which no one, not even Elvis himself, could challenge. Her position became unshakable, transforming her from a wife into the mother of the heiress, whose voice carried weight. Proof number 2, the open marriage and strategic exit. The world knows that Elvis had countless affairs. He disappeared for weeks with other women, explaining nothing to his wife, and often kept her at a distance, offering only luxury, not emotional intimacy, turning their marriage into an empty ritual. But much less is known about the fact that Priscilla, as soon as it became safe, began to lead her own independent life, entering into a relationship with karate instructor Mike Stone. She publicly stated that she felt abandoned, which perfectly fit the image of a miserable wife abandoned by a megastar husband, thereby gaining public sympathy and creating an alibi for herself. When this connection became obvious, Elvis was furious. He felt betrayed. He wanted his wife to be pure, but paradoxically, he could not resist. He had been cheating for years, and his own morality did not give him the right to anger, which she was well aware of and used as leverage to gain freedom without losing status, but rather strengthening it. Priscilla used his own rules against him. She knew that a public scandal was not what she needed. She did not file for divorce over his endless infidelities, thereby portraying herself as a patient victim who endured and maintained the family until she was forced to leave. She filed for divorce only when she felt she could leave and maintain her ideal public status as a victim of circumstances who finally found the strength for a new life. This was a demonstration of her strategic strength. She won freedom without losing the main thing, the last name and reputation, and also retaining control over her daughter, which was her main trump card. She was the first to publicly move away from the king without losing a single point in the minds of fans, unlike Elvis himself, whose reputation suffered from his constant antics and worsening lifestyle. She elegantly stepped out of his shadow without giving up his last name, which became her key to the future. Proof number 3, turning Graceland into a business empire. This is the largest, most cynical, and most successful part of her plan, revealing her brilliant financial acumen. When Elvis died in 1977, Graceland was falling into ruin. Finances were in a terrible, catastrophic state, threatening the sale of the mansion. Elvis's legacy was nearly bankrupt due to Colonel Parker's mismanagement and his own extravagant spending, and his home could have been sold at auction for pennies, destroying the myth. She could have simply taken her small share and left, but she did something else, something incredible. She convinced the trustees to open Graceland to the public, turning it into a museum. This was her brilliant but ruthless move, for which the world should perhaps be grateful, but which forever deprived the king of his last private sanctuary, turning his dead body, his furniture, and his memory into a commodity for mass consumption. She turned Elvis's intimate, private space into a commercial, relentless machine. She ceased to be just a widow. She became the guardian of the legacy and chief executive officer, CEO, generating tens of millions of dollars annually. Thanks to her actions, the Presley name began making money again, securing millions for Lisa Marie and herself and financial stability for life. She saved the name and then forced it to work for her. She used his tragic death to create her financial empire and forever cemented her name alongside his. She took the brand he created and monetized it after his death with incredible efficiency, controlling every aspect of his public image, including what could and could not be shown in Graceland, carefully filtering out the negative. Priscilla refused most of his money in the divorce, but kept the house. Why? Because, unlike the king himself, she knew, a house is not walls. A house is a gold mine, a source of continuous income and power over the legend. And it is her decision to turn Graceland into a tourist mecca that proves her strategic genius. But was it respect for the king, or a cold, calculated, and flawless business plan that guaranteed her power and financial control over his legend, which survived his death and her own business ventures? The personal price of the agreement was undoubtedly devastating. Elvis felt lonely and abandoned even before the official divorce. He lived in the golden cage that Priscilla helped him create, maintaining his image. His dependence on medication, his growing paranoia, and the feeling of constant betrayal were all amplified by the fact that even his queen ultimately played her own separate game. She was his ideal, but emotionally absent partner, whose true goal lay outside their marriage, and he felt it, which made him even more miserable. She gained the desired fame, financial security, and status. He gained death in solitude at the age of 42 in a hotel where he felt isolated, unable to restore a real connection with a world that adored him. Her legacy is inextricably linked to his. She is the constant, eternal, official bridge between Elvis the man and Elvis the icon. She wrote a book that revealed his secrets, and at the same time, she is the main face of his absolute monetization. It is a paradox. She was his only wife, but in a sense, she was also his biggest investor and ultimate beneficiary, who profited the most from his tragedy. An investor who received dividends in the form of lifelong, enduring fame and control over $1 billion legacy. Even after the recent tragedy with Lisa Marie, Priscilla again found herself in the spotlight, fighting for control over the inheritance. This struggle, even after her daughter's death, only underscores how important power over the Presley brand is to her, having become synonymous with her own life, her only true identity, and the source of her strength. It proves one thing: her connection to the Presley name is not just a sentimental memory. It is an economic and psychological anchor. It is an inseparable part of her identity and her financial power, which was established when she was a 14-year-old girl who accepted the invitation to Graceland, understanding that it was her only chance at greatness. Thus, we see a story that began as a passionate but controlled romance and ended as a flawless and highly profitable business plan. Was Priscilla a victim of a controlling husband, or was she a clever player who used the world's richest resource, Elvis's fame, to build her own unbreakable image? She arrived as a 14-year-old girl who longed to escape provincial life and saw her chance. She left as a woman who owns one of the most valuable legacies in the world. The secret of her mystery is only one: the king may die, but his brand must live. And Priscilla did everything to be his living, eternal embodiment and guardian of the flame, gaining unlimited power over his memory and turning it into millions of dollars every year. Even though her own life with him was far from ideal, she maintained the ideal image for the world. What is your opinion? If you had known this truth about Priscilla's cold calculation and strategy earlier, would your attitude towards the king of rock, in role, and the woman who became the chief ruler of his legacy after his death have changed? Priscilla won this game, turning grief into millions. Their lives were not a fairy tale, but a deal. Hollywood is a cemetery of stars, where the richest heirs build empires on the bones of idols. And what is Graceland really hiding? Next week, we will reveal 5 forbidden rooms that Priscilla banned tourists from entering to preserve her illusion. Don't miss Graceland, the secrets Priscilla hidden. Our investigations challenge the official story. To not miss the next shocking episode, immediately click subscribe and the bell icon. We are waiting for you.